Hello, I am Dr. Topi Basar, Associate Professor at National Law University and Judicial Academy, Assam. Welcome to my lecture on the topic The Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Act 2001, an overview. India, having ratified the Agreement on Trade-related Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights, had to give effect to Article 27 3b of TRIPS, under which members were given option to exclude from patentability plants and animals other than microorganisms and essentially biological processes for the production of plants or animals. Members shall provide for the protection of plant varieties either by patents or by an effective sui generis system or by any combination thereof. India decided to have its own sui generis law known as the Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Act 2001. Now, what were the main objectives of the Act? The objectives of PPVFRA is to provide for the establishment of an effective system for protection of plant varieties, the rights of farmers and plant breeders, and to encourage the development of new varieties of plants. It was felt that it's necessary to recognize and protect the rights of the farmers in respect of their contribution made at any time in conserving, improving, and making available plant genetic resources for the development of new plant varieties in India. Before going into the key provisions, it is important to understand the definitions of key terms in the Act. Benefit sharing. What do you mean by benefit sharing and how is it has been defined? In relation to a variety, benefit sharing means such proportion of the benefit accruing to a breeder of such variety or such proportion of the benefit accruing to the breeder from an agent or a licensee of such variety as the case may be, for which a claimant shall be entitled as determined by the authority under section 26 of the Act. Breeder. Breeder means a person or group of persons or a farmer or group of farmers or any institution which has bred, evolved or developed any variety. Essentially derived variety. What do you mean by this? Essentially derived variety is a variety which is essentially derived from an initial variety. However, it is clearly distinguishable from such initial variety while retaining the expression of the essential characteristics that result from the genotype or combination of genotype of such initial variety. Extant variety, a term which is often used in the Act. What do you mean by extant variety? Extant variety means a variety available in India which is 1. Notified under Section 5 of the Seeds Act 1966 or farmer's variety or a variety about which there is a common knowledge or any other variety which is in public domain. Extant variety includes all these categories. Farmer. We often use the term farmer, but let us see how it has been defined under the Act. Farmer means any person who cultivates crops by cultivating the land himself or cultivates crops by directly supervising the cultivation of land through any other person. That means he is not cultivating the land himself, but he is supervising the cultivation of the land by some other person. Thirdly, the one who conserves and preserves, severally or jointly, with any person, any wild species or traditional varieties, or adds value to such wild species or traditional varieties through selection and identification of their useful properties. Next is farmer's variety. Farmer's variety means a variety which has been traditionally cultivated and evolved by the farmers in their fields, or is a wild relative or land race of a variety about which the farmers possess the common knowledge. Therefore, it is referred to as the farmer's variety. Now, let us look at the salient features of the Act. The Act establishes an authority known as the Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Authority. It consists of a chairperson and 15 members. The general functions of authority are to provide for registration of new plant varieties, documentation, indexing, and cataloging of farmers' varieties, providing for compulsory licensing, etc., among other functions. And in all proceedings under this Act, before the authority or the registrar, they shall have all the powers of a civil court. The Act also envisages that the central government shall establish, for the purposes of this Act, a registry which shall be known as the Plant Varieties Registry. The National Register of Plant Varieties shall be kept at the head office of the registry, wherein the names of all the registered plant varieties and the name and addresses of their respective breeders, the right of such breeders in respect of the registered variety, the particulars of the denomination of each registered variety, its seed or other propagating material, along with specification of salient features, shall be recorded during the registry. Now the important question is, who can file the application for registration? Any person specified in section 16 may make an application to the registrar for registration of any variety. A. Of such genera and species as specified under subsection 2 of section 29, or B. which is an extant variety, or C. which is a farmer's variety. Who all can file the application is provided under section 16. Under section 16, an application for registration shall be made by any person claiming to be the breeder of the variety, or any successor of the breeder of the variety, or any person being the assignee of the breeder of the variety in respect of the right to make such application. Any farmer or group of farmers or community of farmers claiming to be the breeder of the variety, or any person authorized in the prescribed manner by a person specified under clauses A to D to make application on his behalf, or any university or publicly funded agricultural institution claiming to be the breeder of the variety. So, all breeder of a new variety can file for application under section 16, mentioned under section 16 of the Act, who are in the capacity of the breeder of the new plant variety. What are the registrable varieties? What are the essential conditions for registration? This is given in section 15 of the Act. In accordance with section 15, every new variety which conforms to the criteria of novelty, distinctiveness, uniformity, and stability shall be registered under this Act. So these are the four important criteria which we can call, in short, we can refer to it as NUDS. NUDS, N for novelty, U for uniformity, D for distinctiveness, S for stability. Now, what do we mean by novelty? A new variety shall be deemed to be novel if the propagating or harvested material of such variety has not been sold or otherwise disposed of by or with the consent of its breeder or his successor for the purposes of exploitation of such variety in India. It means the new plant variety should not be sold or disposed of with the consent of the breeder or his successor. In India, in case of India, the period mentioned is not earlier than 1 year. Outside India, in the case of trees and vines, not earlier than 6 years. So this is the time period given. It is considered novel if it's clearly distinguishable by at least one essential characteristic from any other variety whose existence is a matter of common knowledge in any country. Important proviso is provided that a trial of a new variety which has not been sold or otherwise disposed of shall not affect the right to protection. That means trials are exempted. Trials will not affect the novelty criteria. Now, uniformity. What do you mean by uniform? If subject to the variation that may be expected from the particular features of its propagation, it is sufficiently uniform with essential characteristics. In that case, it will be regarded as uniform and it will meet the criteria of uniformity. That means even when it is subjected to the variation that may be expected from the particular features of its propagation, it is sufficiently uniform with essential characteristics. It is maintaining its uniformity with regards to its essential characteristics. Stability. If its essential characteristics remain unchanged after repeated propagation, or in the case of a particular cycle of propagation at the end of each such cycle. So we can see that under section 15, novelty, distinctiveness, uniformity, and stability is a very, very important criteria to be fulfilled for the registration of a new plant variety, which will be determined based on field trials by the competent authority. That is the end of my lecture, part 1, and the rest of the portions will be covered under the lecture, part 2. Thank you.